Hello. Can you hear me? Michael is joined. Lily Shen. Lily, I have your chart. Um, if you want me to use you as an example at some point to talk about the lots, I can do that. Good. Hello, Jalachandra. Okay. Jojo. Bray Nicole, I know who that is. Haley. Bina. Eva. I think I know that which Eva that is. Hello, Eva. Christina. Taylor! What's going on, Taylor? Excited to see everyone here. Ashley. Hi, Ashley. Abby. Oh, I got roses. Michael gave me roses. Annalicia. Hello, Annalicia. Well, I'm going to greet everybody. We're just getting warmed up. Hey, Eva. Urania. Thank you. Aw, thank you, Monique. Cool. All right. So I'm going to do this a little differently than I've done lives in the past. I was told gingerly that I was too teacherly and I had slides and all this other stuff. So I'm going to go more with just talking with you guys about my research and thoughts with the lots of spirit and fortune and talk a little bit. Um, hey, Ray, thank you. I am I'm glad we met in Edmonton. Um, but I'm going to talk to you about the lots of fortune and spirit and what I've discovered and then open it up for some readings. Now, just in advance, there's some things to know, and I will repeat this during the live because I think this is critical. One, you need an accurate birth time and place in order for me to do your lot of fortune and spirit correctly. Let me tell you a little bit why that's necessary. So, if you don't have that information, I can't do the reading for you today. Um, so that's critical. The reason why we need an accurate birth time, and whether that's on your birth certificate or mom remembers or dad remembers or some other family member remembers, that's all fine. But the lots of fortune and spirit, also known as the parts of spirit and fortune, are calculated based on your ascendant and the position of your sun and moon when you were born. So if you don't have a known birth time, you don't have a clear or clearly marked ascendant. And if you don't have a clearly marked ascendant, chances are your lots of spirit and fortune could be misplaced in your chart. And so it won't read accurately. So again, it's critical that you know your birth time, birthplace, birth city. Most people know those other things, but your birth time is going to be most important in figuring out your lots of spirit and fortune. So let's talk about those. First, why do I interchangeably use lots? And then some people use parts. Which is it? Well, it's both. And the truth of the matter is the 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 language of using the idea of parts comes from a misunderstanding. So one of the things to know is that the legacy of astrology from Roman and Hellenistic times, meaning from Greece and from Rome, was interrupted after the fall of the Roman Empire. And so a lot of information related to astrology was not immediately transmitted to Europe. So it actually was picked up during the golden age of Islam, and a lot of Islamic scholars and astrologers started reading and rediscovering ancient Hellenistic texts. And so they started translating them and then translating those initial ideas of the lots and all the ways which that we understand astrology. And by virtue of that, um, they created more of their own lots. And so the lots became really popular in Arabic astrology. Well, Europeans, as they started learning more about or rediscovering this or discovering this astrology from Hellenistic times, thought that the parts came from the Arabs. So they were called the Arabic parts. But the real translation of what the Arabs call parts and Europeans call parts was from the Greek, which is kleros, and kleros is lot. So originally, the what we call the parts were called the lots. And then, like I said, it kind of stuck as like, oh, the Arabic parts, even though Arabs were like, I just contributed some parts. I didn't make them up, because they were made up by Greek astrologers initially. So I hope that settles one query that people have. Like, well, I've seen it as part, and then I've seen it as lot. They're the same. So let's go into what are they now. Because I'm not showing slides, which is fine. I'm not going to go more into the math related to on how to calculate the lots of fortune and the lot of spirit. The simplest way to do it is have the computer do it. That's the easiest way. And when I say have the computer do it, you either, if you have software, or I can tell you where you can go to find out your lots. If you don't get a reading from me, you can go to astro-seek.com, and that will show you. In fact, let me go there now and talk you through how to do it. You can go to astro-seek.com. I would recommend with this site setting up an account. Really easy, and it's free. I don't know if I mentioned the magic word. Free. It's free. And it's where you can calculate that. That's until Astro Live figures out a way to have it on our place. So you can go to where it says free horoscopes, traditional astrology calculator. Thank you, Lily. And then go to scroll down to where it says lot of fortune, spirit, eros, and then it has all the other parts or lots. And it gives you a breakdown, and you just have to put in your birth information, and it will calculate your lot of fortune, lot of spirit, and even your lot of eros, which I'll talk about briefly. So it will give you those three things. And again, it's free. That's one of the easiest places. You can find this also on astro.com, but I like AstroSeek a little more related to this. So it's easier, and it'll give you everything that you need there. And you just have to put in your birth information. Okay, so why is this special? Why did you agree to talk about this, Sam? Well, let me start off with saying something very dramatic. I'll say that your lot of fortune, for example, was historically deemed so important that it was viewed as your secondary ascendant. And in many ways, it was seen as having the power to understand the nature of your full material circumstances. Let me explain a few things related to that. And I'll start off with the last thing I said: material circumstances. That includes your body, it includes, oh, thank you, Urania, for putting that in. It includes your body, material, physical circumstances, your finances, including your wealth and prosperity, your health, and it also will include some dimension of where you experience your emotional fulfillment. We'll even say happiness. Now, well, why? Well, one of the names for the lot of fortune was also the lot of the moon. And I'm going to open up some things that maybe you haven't heard or read about with the moon that becomes important to understand. But let me go forward. I said I will start from the last thing I said. Well, your ascendant is really important and unique. And I don't think we talk about the uniqueness of the ascendant so much because you were born at a particular time and a particular place. So, for instance, it's 7:10 p.m. here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And the sign that's rising is 11 degrees Cancer. Now, that's generally going to be true for those who are born mountain time in terms of Cancer ascendant. But the specific degree, 11 degrees, is going to be determined somewhat by the latitude and then also the time zone. So, not everyone is going to be born with a Cancer rising at this particular time with the unique position of the moon. And the moon is at 27 degrees and 26 minutes of Gemini, and a unique position of the sun at 6 degrees and 34 minutes. And in fact, if I have the position of the sun, moon, and rising, and maybe another inner planet like your Venus, it's possible to determine where you were born and at what time. It's that specific and that individual. So the ascendant really does become the gateway by which we understand your unique manifestation in this realm, in your body, in this world. So, with that said, the ascendant being that unique point, imagine if we're looking at the distance between the sun and the moon as another marker. So, right now it's going to be just a little over, you know, it's almost, let's see, um, I'm going to say it's just about 200 degrees from each other in terms of the sun and moon. Maybe just a little, maybe 201. Okay. Now, with 200 degrees separating the sun and the moon right now, if someone were born right now in Santa Fe, okay, what that would mean is that unique position between the sun and the moon, when projected to the ascendant, is even more unique. So your lot of fortune is going to be um, a determining influence related to your unique lot, just like that word lottery, right? The spelling out of how you deal with or encounter your physical, material circumstances in the world. So, and the lot of fortune is called the lot of the moon. And when I say it as the lot of the moon, I mean more so because the moon, and I said that I would explain more, the moon relates to classically, and then I'll talk about the modern notion, your body. It's more so expressive of the container by which you are incarnated. And so the moon, we can say, deals with the question and issues of form taking shape. And then also those things that are formative. Like what's formative? Well, it also symbolizes the first body you had before you actually had your own body, your mom. So you borrowed a body in order to be able to grow a body. So the moon also symbolizes the mother. The other thing to contemplate, and this is more the modern notion of it, but it still makes sense, is that it deals with your emotions because your emotions are the impressions that you process related to your mind that are also formative in how you express yourself. Again, the vehicle by which you have form, your body. So, from a spiritual point of view, this is also related to your what we call your astral body or your emotional body. So, This is kind of more of the formative aspect. So we could say even your lot of fortune deals with your experience of your heart, what you value and give energy to, or what you receive energy from. Now I made a distinction there because the lot of fortune and just fortune in general, we think fortune is like, oh yeah, this is where I'm going to get my money, I'm going to get paid, I'm going to get things, and everything's going to happen for me. The classical understanding of fortune was like, and so I'm about to use some German, is the shit that just happened to you. It wasn't so much, oh, this is more, where I get my money and I become wealthy and all that. No, it's more so, here is your lot, here is your fortune. Here is the experience of how things come into your life. That is what fortune symbolized. So it's neither good nor bad. It is just how you experience these things. And as Uranus says, it is your lot in life. So this is what's symbolized by your lot of fortune. And there's other things, Rob Hand says some interesting things about it. I love Rob's take on things. And he said it's dumb luck. Um, it's where you also experience, this is from Vedic Valence. The moon is fortune in body and breath, and since she is close to the earth and sends her effluence into us, she brings about something similar as she has authority over our bodies. So it's more, like I said, your material, physical, and fiscal circumstances. So when we're talking about a lot of fortune, and I'll do a separate discussion on the lot of spirit, and then I'll start talking and get doing readings for both. The lot of fortune, when planets are near to it, conjoined to it, or have strong aspects to it, like an opposition, or we might say even a square, it has an influence, it has an influence on you related to the nature of that planet. So, and I wanted to say something about what Taylor said also before I go into that. Taylor says, I'm glad you said you can reverse engineer charts. Never made total sense why data is not included on anonymous charts, because you can figure it out, just takes a bit longer. That's true. So I guess they just, want to discourage you from doing it easily. Um, and yes, Taylor's also making a point where I didn't do it today, but usually when I do this discussion, I talk about the myth of or air, ER. And that's when, before you incarnated, you actually would draw lots, and or cast lots, and then you would pick up a lot, like you pick up some shiny object, and you're like, oh, I want this life before you incarnate. It could be a wretched life, like you die at 18, but you're rich. And then the spirit called the daemon incarnates with you, um, as something that draws you in. Eva is also kind of saying, because I've talked about the lot of fortune as the kitchen sink catcher, right? How it just catches everything. Like if you were washing your hands or washing dishes, and ring came off, it would ring, which is something valuable, but it also would catch like those carrots that didn't drain. Um, so anyway, going back to the lot of fortune, if you have planets that have close relationship, or what we call hard aspects to your lot, being at the stakes of the lot, like, let's say Venus is opposing your lot of fortune, then Venusian things, which I'll explain in a minute, are going to be a straw draw for you, a strong draw, not straw draw, a strong draw for you. You may find yourself pulled toward things that involve Venus, beauty, art, gathering people, liking things, trying to be pleasing, being a pleaser. All these particular things may highlight more how you have the experience of your lot. If you have Mercury close to it, then you're going to be drawn to Mercury things. If you have Mars, you're going to be drawn to Martian things. And we're talking mainly about the 7 traditional planets, but by extension, I think we can say that if you have Uranus or Neptune or Pluto, those also will be compelling things that come into your orbit. So we could say that related to the lot of fortune, they form their own angles. Because Taylor just asked about angles. Hey, Taya. So when I say that they form their own angles, we can imagine a lot of fortune at your ascendant, for example. And by virtue of being at your ascendant, like let's say your lot of fortune is 9 Aries. So we put 9 Aries at your as your ascendant, even though your ascendant might be something else. And we can imagine wherever Venus is related, let's say you have a Venus in Libra and it's opposite to that lot of fortune, that Venus is kind of screaming like, "Hey, ho, you see me?" Right? It's kind of in the seventh house position of that lot of fortune and giving a lot of focus related to, or getting a lot of focus related to those things. Same thing if it were at the 10th. Um, Same thing as if it were at the bottom. Richard is asking me about orbs, and I tend to give wide orbs related to the lot of fortune. But if we had to kind of, contain things, so let's say the Venus is at 27 degrees, and I just mentioned that 27 degrees Libra, and I said that the lot of fortune is at 9 degrees Aries. That's pretty wide. I still think the Venus will be somewhat in the mix because it's at a pivot point related to the lot, but I think it's kind of more um, in terms of that. What does a moon square do with the lot of fortune in general, of course? Um, what does a moon square? So, if the moon is square to the lot of fortune and involved in that, um, in that sense, then it's also going to be highlighting things related to the moon and concerns related to the moon. And so you're like, what kind of concerns related to the moon? Well, for instance, if it's driven by the moon, it's going to be, or even ruled by the moon, it's going to be very much interested in lunar things, family, home, nurturing, caretaking, taking care of others, um, being concerned with um, more the sense of home and feeling secure. So those things will be strongly highlighted. And this is going to be true for all the planets. So if you have a basic understanding of the planets themselves, from the sun all the way out to Pluto, then you can have some measure of relationship and understanding how these particular lots will be important for you and figure in your life. So Cameron, first, hi, what's up, bro? I hope I've answered your question and any other questions that people have asked, including Richard. Hi, Richard. We haven't met yet, but I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Um, okay, so let's go into deeper um, about the lot of fortune. I think I've covered a little more about that. Um, so, well, actually, now that I've kind of covered more the lot of fortune, the same principles that relate to the lot of spirit or a lot of fortune relate to the lot of spirit, which is it's less being a secondary ascendant and more so going, it's actually called a couple different things. I'm sorry, I got booted out. I'm back though. So thank you, Monique. So the lot of fortune is called the lot of the moon. The lot of spirit is also called the lot of the sun. One other thing that I did not mention because you're going to have a computer calculate this for you anyway. So welcome back, everyone. Yes, hi Urania, hi Eva. Um, is that the calculations for the lots depend on whether you were born during the day with the sun above the horizon, or if you were born at night with the sun below the horizon. The reverse date, so they're reverse formulas. The lot of fortune relates to the moon. The lot of spirit relates to the sun. So as Cameron said, It is also called the lot of spirit, is also called the lot of the hidden. It's also called the lot of the daemon, as in Daiom or Daimon, daemon. It's also called pars futurorum, which is part of things to come. You're like, well, damn, there's a lot that gets associated with that lot. It is. It's a very powerful lot, but rather than dealing with your material circumstances, your physical and fiscal circumstances, or just where your heart seems to kind of coalesce, or things around your where your heart coalesces, the lot of spirit is more related to your intentions, your inner world, and what you revere, what you hold sacred, and maybe even secret. So it's kind of where it's more dealing with issues of character, more dimensions of how you kind of construct your sense of self from the body and from your material circumstances. So it's said to be the character of the soul, intentional, related to your sense of purpose, and even vocation. So the lot of spirit will reveal a lot more about the inner workings of a person and what they revere and what becomes important for them. And now, some other astrologers, including one that I hold in high esteem, Robert Zoller, who wrote a book called The Arabic Parts in Astrology, A Lost Key to Prediction. Again, Zoller is spelled Z as in Zed, Oller, and he wrote The Arabic Parts in Astrology, A Lost Key to Prediction. He maintained that it indicates the person's concept of God. It indicates that which the native aspires, his or her God. I don't know, based on my additional research, I don't know if I would say it's what becomes God for the person, but it's what you revere. And some measure of that will be revealed by the Lord of that lot, the same as the lot of fortune. So we also have to pay attention to the Lords. And you're like, what do you mean by the Lords? You talking about Yeshua? You talking about who? No. So if you have a lot of fortune, for example, going back to that at 9 Aries, the Lord of that is Mars. And that becomes very important because Mars will tell you a lot about that lot. Whereas, let's say your lot of spirits in Cancer, then you're going to be looking to the moon because the moon is the ruler for Cancer. So you're looking generally at about three things. You're looking at the angles related to the lot, like who is squaring the lot, who's opposing the lot, who's conjoined to the lot within a certain number of degrees. You're going to be looking at who is the lord of the lot, like the planet in charge of that sign. And then you're going to be looking at the position, the house position of the actual lot. So if your lot of spirit is in the fourth house, your lot of fortune is in the first house, that will tell us more or tell us some information. And what will it tell us? Just to kind of confirm, the lot of fortune will tell you more about your material, physical, and more how things come about for you in general, but also in terms of where you put your treasure, your heart. Then, when we're talking about the lot of spirit, it's more your what you revere, what you what where you find your sense of intention and aspiration, and even what we could say your vocation, where you experience a sense of calling and feeling compelled to do things. Well, I hope that this gives some sense of it in terms of the two lots, the lot of spirit, the lot of fortune, and how we might come to think about them. What I want to do now is field any questions you have. And then I am going to start off with Lily Shen's chart because she's given me permission to do so. That way, you guys can feel safe to share your chart after you hear me talk about Lily. And one thing we should all say is happy birthday to Lily. Lily just had her birthday on the 25th, so it was just this past Saturday. So we can celebrate Lily, and I just want to say this, that I don't know. I mean, Rainy Zhao has been instrumental in bringing this app together, but in terms of bringing the people together, including myself, it wouldn't have happened without Lily. So I'm very grateful for her and her contribution. So it's going to be an honor for me to talk about her chart and her lot of fortune and a lot of spirit and what it might mean. So I'm going to start off with Lily. Um, but again, if anyone wants a reading, be sure that I have your accurate birth time, birthplace, including the location, like city, and what else? And yeah, the time and birth date, right? That's important. Those things. Um, because otherwise I won't be able to do it. So that's the bad part. Now, I anticipate this. There may be some people who are kind of like, well, am I screwed? Like, oh, okay, now I'm seeing. I was like, why is it stuck? Okay, yeah, okay, you guys are saying happy birthday to her. Good. Because I was like just looking at something that Taylor wrote, and I'm like, wait, where's the rest of it? Hey, Amber. Um, so, um, where was I? I get so flustered with these things sometimes. It's so funny. Um, in terms of, like not knowing your birth time, what I would recommend is you get a rectification. Now, I no longer do rectification, I just don't have the time. But there are two people you can look up, or you can write me and tell you about this. Um, is that you can look up Patrick Watson, an astrologer. So Patrick Watson, astrologer, and Catherine Urban are also people um, who I would recommend for um, rectification. So you don't have to feel like your your chart is just hanging out in the ether and you'll never know. You can't figure a way to find it. Okay, so there's a couple questions. Let me pause something. So I'm going to do Lily first. I would recommend that you hold off and give me your information. I'm seeing some people give me, or at least one person give me their information. I would hold off because it's going to get scrolled up, right? And I'm just going to do Lily, and then I will do, as long as I can find it, I will do, well, I see Cassandra, I see Figures of Heaven, um, and yeah. So let me answer Richard's question. Do you work with asteroids in the aspects of the lots? No. Do you find them having significant influence as well? I don't know, because, oh, hold on. Okay. Should I answer that? I mean, I think Taylor wants to come in. I don't know if that, so, Taylor, did you mean to call me? Because I can have you come in a minute. But let me finish this thought. This question from Richard. So I don't do asteroids on a regular. Um, so I can't testify to their use, but I also wouldn't doubt that they illustrate, especially if you have points connected to one of the stakes of the lots, that they have some significance. So, like Ceres or whoever, or Vesta. Um, Although I think Ceres now is a dwarf planet. I know it's originally listed as an asteroid, but I think it's been upgraded and should be. Um, but I would experiment. I would advise experimenting with asteroids, but I haven't done it. That's not my thing, which doesn't mean anything. Um, No, it's when you're ready for a reading. You for reading you? Are you also saying volunteering yourself? Because I have your information. Um Jonah has a question. Okay. All right. I will accept you then. Jonah has a question. Do you use any other lots in your work besides the lot of spirit and lot of fortune? Yes. I do look at the lot of arrows. I look at the seven lots, but I give most attention to fortune and spirit. So the other Hermetic lots are exaltation, necessity, eros, courage, and victory, and nemesis. I also look at the lot of the father and the lot of the mother, and I use the Alexandrinus, Paulus Alexandrinus model. Someone's saying lost sound. Have I lost sound? I don't know if I've lost sound. I, okay. Thank you, Bina. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Because I was like, wait, how would I know? I feel like a fallen tree in a forest, right? Wouldn't know. Okay, so let's get to Lily. So I'm not going to divulge Lily's birth information, but one thing to know in calculating her lot, she's Aquarius rising with the sun in Sag, because I told her her birthday, and the moon in Virgo. So she almost has a sextile between her sun and moon, and she's a day birth. What that means then is if I were to put the sun at the ascendant, then the moon would reveal or be at the exact position of where we would have her lot of fortune, which is true because in a day chart, the moon is going to reveal the lot of fortune. Okay. So that's, and her lot of fortune is at 24 degrees Sagittarius. Her lot of spirit is at, I want to say, 3 degrees of Taurus. Now, what does this tell us? Well, there's a couple things. One thing is very close to Lily's lot of fortune is Mercury. And this is something I share with Lily. My Mercury is also conjoined to my lot of fortune. If you've encountered Lily, you might have the feeling that Lily is everywhere doing everything all at once, right? Very mercurial, active communicator, active facilitator. So things related to Mercury, anything that she could put to language, whether that's in Chinese or English, is going to be where she experiences her fortune. And again, when I say fortune, this is not judging it as good or bad, as just things that happen. So she, in many ways, can be a born communicator. And I think she's very talented in terms of communication. And it happens in building a network and working with a team because if we use whole sign houses, it turns out that her Mercury ends up and her lot of fortune in the 11th house. So working in a team, working with people, um, working in some way in terms of connecting with people, this is going to be important because one of the things I want to say, because you may have noticed I haven't talked about Jupiter just yet. So Jupiter is the ruler of her lot of fortune, but I've talked about what planet is closest to her lot of fortune and where it is in her chart. And then I'm going to talk about the ruler. Now, you might say, that, why didn't you talk about the ruler first? Because I think of the lots as like tofu. Like, oh, I can't wait to hear this. The fuck is he going to say? I think of the lots like tofu because they take on the flavor of what's next to it. And so, or what has an aspect to it. And so Mercury has the closest aspect to Lily's lot. Um, Going along with it, her moon is also square to the lot of fortune. So lunar things are also going to be very important for her. But because the Mercury is closest, it's going to have even more significance for her. So the moon and Mercury also rules her moon in Virgo. So mercurial things, as long as it's something that she can juggle and communicate, and has this way of connecting, she's good. What also is interesting, now this is something you would only know if you know Lily, and I don't think this is like a top secret. Lily can talk to animals. Okay, I know it may sound like I'm making her like, Dr. Doolittle, but one of the things she told me early on that I thought was really powerful was that she, you know, seems to be able to communicate with all kinds of animals that come in her yard, foxes, um, other dogs, other creatures. And, I was kind of nervous for her when she said that because I was like, well, damn, right? You talk to foxes, they're wild animals. You don't know what might happen. Um, right. And Cameron's saying, no wonder she talks to me so well. Yes, you're wily as a fox, Cameron. We all know. No, you're really a centaur. That's no joke between me and Cameron. Um, but yeah, she has this ability to kind of really, talk. And she actually also told me she took a job initially where she didn't know any English, and then just eventually started picking up English. And now look what she's doing. She's also working for English speaking companies, and Chinese companies. So it's amazing. I mean, that Mercury really does speak along with the moon. You're like, okay, what about her Jupiter? Hello, where Jupiter is in Leo, in which also looks to her sun. She has a trine between her sun and Jupiter. And so, in terms of, again, teaching, traveling, which she does a lot of, which is very Jupiterian, all these particular things, that also funnels into her understanding, or our understanding, of her lot of fortune and how she experiences things. Um, it also may be through, since it's in the seventh house, where she has enhancements related to her fortunes or her circumstances through a partner. And so that partner can be a business partner, or that partner could also be a romantic partner. But these are the ways by which she also experiences that sense of connection. All right, what about her lot of spirit? Her lot of spirit is at 3 degrees Taurus, which means it's Venus. So here's the funny thing, her Venus is at 7 degrees Scorpio. It's directly opposite to her lot of spirit. You're like, okay, so what? Well, this would reveal a couple things. If we look at just the position of the lot of spirit in the fourth house, Lily has a strong reverence related to home, family, um, in terms of whether that's parents, whether that's like children, but the sense of, establishing a sense of rootedness. But you might remember the other part of the stake, because here's Venus. I mean, I should say, here's Taurus, her lot of spirit in Taurus, and Venus is up here at the top of the chart. It's going to be a certain draw toward Venusian things, art, beauty, singing. So, in many ways, even though Lily doesn't talk about it much, she may be an artist at heart or have a strong interest related to experiencing the beautiful, whether that's through music, dance, art, all these particular things by which that really speak to her inner aspirations. Also, because I know she works in some aspects of packaging, right? In terms of one of her jobs, how things are packaged, whether they're packaged beautifully, and all these particular things, um, and the beauty related to it. That is something that's highlighted. Now, there's a question that figure figures of heaven has asked. The question is, did Lily have a hand in the app? Yeah, definitely in giving feedback, but the genius behind it is Rainey. as I understand it, and her team. Um, but Lily gave a lot of feedback to Rainey, and she's crediting Mint um, in in the look and feel of it. But paying attention to how things look in presentation has also marked Lily. You're like, well, what do you mean? Well, if you were at Norwalk this past year, there were gifts given out, and they were, delightedly packaged, um, given to people that she shared. And, they were little orbs, which I still have on my other desk. And I think that also highlights her Venus. So her inner world, if we talk about what she reveres to her lot of spirit, especially being ruled by Venus and Venus being able to see it, because one thing to understand about the classical mindset, the word aspect comes from the Latin aspectus, and aspectus means to be able to see. And so this Venus can see, even though she's opposite to the lot that she rules, the lot of spirit, can see by direct opposition that lot. And so being drawn to beauty, to art, all these things, music deeply resonate in the inner world and aspirations of Lily. I also think, and I'm not flirting, but Shen, doesn't Shen mean beautiful? So it's funny, Lily Shen. All right. So, um, Lily, how does that resonate so far in terms of what I've talked about? Let me just see. I don't know if she's replied. All right, she's giving me thumbs up, or someone's giving me thumbs up. Licia is my Chinese name. Um, and what does Licia mean? Which I'm sure I'm butchering, because Chinese is not my language. Lily is a beautiful, wise flower. Shen is like divinity. Oh, okay. Li means beautiful. Okay. Or spirit. Oh, thank you, Cameron, too. So, yeah. So it's like she's saying beautiful sunset. And that's interesting with Venus being the opposite point. So, I mean, this is kind of the power of understanding your lots, because they can reveal some of your inner world and some measure of your outer world. Like, so for instance, Mercury, I said, is conjoined in my lot of fortune in the ninth house. I have been involved in ninth house activities practically all my life. I was a child minister and preacher. I was a college professor, and Mercury is a planet associated with astrology. And my ninth house, the ninth house itself, deals with astrology. So that also marks me related to dealing with mercurial things. My lot of spirit is 3 degrees Cancer. So it rules by the moon, or it's ruled by the moon. Um, so, and it's in the fifth house. So things related to Cancerian things, family, um, being able to take care of things, including pets, these are near and dear to my heart. Now, I don't have pets right now, but for um, many years I had pets. So, and my moon is in the sixth house, and they were cats. And my moon is in Leo. Um, and Cameron's weighing in on something. You be having them dreams, teaching you things, right? So he's talking, yeah, the inner world related to the dream world because it's ruled by the moon. So again, when we're also talking about the inner world of the moon ruling spirit, it also will reveal more about, like I said, um, also things related to like water. Some of my best ideas come in water when I'm bathing or showering or in a pool. Like I really like to be near water. Now, I can hear my buddy, and I'm about to accept her in a minute. I can hear Taylor going like, "You moved in the desert. Where's the water?" Right? Okay, yeah. I mean, that was the sacrifice I made, but I also have been drinking a lot more water since I moved to the desert. So, all right. So the next person up, I'm okay. Just because this thing has been keep coming up, I haven't forgotten about other folks here. I do want you to put it back in the chat. I'm going to go to Taylor, but Rose, I want you to put your data. I actually have your data. Um, so I will. So stay on for me to do you and Black Butterfly Sharon. Put it back in, and we have another person from Arizona. So let me accept this from Taylor. Taylor, are you on? Okay. Oh, it's showing me your birth chart, but it's not going to show me your lot. But anyway, are you there, Taylor?
I am. I don't know. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. Oh, look at that.
I can hear you. It's so cool. But let me get your information up. I
I just,
have it.
it's at 2725 Capricorn in my
Okay.
11th house.
Okay. Hold on. Let me just get. So I need to see it. I'm one of
Okay.
those visual people. Moon. Um, but I can get it up pretty quickly. Let's see here. Taylor Schuler. All right. Here we go. All right. Now, yeah, I have 27 degrees Cap for your lot of fortune,
Yep.
conjoined to your sun. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. And then I have one Gemini for your lot of spirit, which ends up in your fourth house
Yeah.
and opposite to your Mars. Okay.
Yeah. And that part of fortune is sextile my Saturn Uranus conjunction, and it's only like 2 minutes of orb between the two. Like, which
It's
one's
it.
closer?
You mean it's semi-sextile?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, semi-sextile. You're right.
Yeah.
So,
Um, which technically doesn't count in the traditional mindset. But what is more fascinating to me is that you have the sun. The closest planet to it is the sun.
yeah.
So your sun to your lot of fortune and things related to the sun are going to be very powerful for you. And then another stake for it is going to be Jupiter, and your Jupiter's in Aries, because it's square to it. So this is this can be both a promising position, which I think is very powerful for you, and a challenging position. Like, why is it challenging? Your sun rules your sixth house. So one of the things you have to be careful of is overwork, right?
Ugh.
And and then challenges related to your health and where you can experience a drain. Now, people may be wondering, like, why is he talking about overwork? Well, the sixth house is related to some measure of well, traditionally it rules the house of health or illness. And so with the sun ruling that, it automatically draws in questions to Taylor's vitality. This is the drawback. The significance is what Cameron has already said. Um, she has star power, which anyone who's met Taylor or seen Taylor, you're like, that's somebody special, right?
Aw, you're so sweet.
I'm not trying to just be sweet, but it's like, you know, anyone who has been on the astrology scene can recognize that, suddenly there's Taylor, in
You're right about
terms
the
of,
health stuff, though. That's for real.
yeah. So
Yeah.
there's but and it's actually good that you've moved. I'm not looking at astrocartography. We can talk to Moses about that, but it's good that you moved someplace that also has a good amount of sun.
Mm.
Um, because you draw power from solar things.
Need
Um,
it every day.
and the other thing that I would say, because the sun is close to your lot of fortune, uh, it also you benefit from gold and having some gold. Not too much, girl. Don't have to floss, but you know what I'm saying. Um, we're having gold. That's drawing into that power of the sun, which you have.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting because your lot of fortune, along with your sun, square Jupiter in Aries. Um, And that really kind of draws in more fire again. And the sun is exalted in Aries. So, what I also think, being a teacher, instructing others on teaching, because Sun square Jupiter also would highlight ways in which you want to, I call it the Superman aspect, because there's some part of you that also wants to save the world
Mm.
and really kind of do a lot more to help others and improve their situation. This is also testified by your lot of spirit. Your lot of spirit, as I mentioned, is in Gemini in the fourth house. So things related to um, the ground, permaculture, anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Um, things related to, and by the way, if you guys don't get that, I know Taylor is into permaculture, um, and has even worked on farms. So things related to the earth, family, in terms of heritage and those particular things. And we do know that you're of dual heritage.
Yeah.
So that's also testified, and you're being able to juggle with that, which is also influenced by that Mercury. But it's also open or opposite to Mars directly. And what I take that to mean is Martian things, Martian people are also where you feel a sense of intention and going toward a draw.
Mm.
Um, which, we have a certain person in your life who's Mars rising.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you're also entrepreneurial. So that's testified by your lot of spirit being opposite to your Mars. So again, this is more your intentionality. I think being an entrepreneur, being a star, being a light, maybe that's the better way to put it, a light for others is kind of where you receive your gifts. Now, I haven't talked much about the ruler, so let me do that now. So the ruler of your lot of fortune is Saturn, conjoined to Uranus, conjoined to your midheaven. What this testifies is that you may go through and have gone through a good measure of ups and downs and volatility related to your career.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know, you're part of that special generation that's not tongue in cheek of having Saturn conjoined to Uranus,
Yeah.
which your generation has gone through more volatility at an earlier age than I would say any living generation. Now, before people get in their feelings about that, let me explain. So, this generation, you know, has gone through Y2K, where they thought the world was going to end. So, there was pandemonium related to that. Then, the year after that was 9/11, pandemonium. Then, 7 years after that, we have roughly at the time that Taylor is 20, just kind of finishing college, we have the Great Recession. And then just by the time that now we could say Taylor was, in 2020, let's say, I guess, would
30.
that be 32, 30, right? We have a
Yeah.
pandemic. So this generation has gone through four things
I'm
before they were
born
even
with like
35.
the Berlin Wall like falling
Yeah, but that
and
didn't,
like
that wasn't the same kind of disaster,
it
at
wasn't.
least.
But also like
So,
Clinton getting impeached, like that was the first time that ever happened. Those are like
right.
inklings, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the other generations, like, because I can hear boomers and Gen Xers like, well, we had Nixon. Shut up.
That's
But
fair.
what we didn't have was kind of the massive calamity on a broad scale, a worldwide scale that millennials have had,
Yeah.
and it's conjoined to your midheaven. So that would testify to some ups and downs related to your career. Now, the natural question I would have if I were you, right, is like, what do I do with that shit? How do I live knowing that there's some measure of volatility? What I believe in is baking it in, baking it into your career where you deal with volatility. How do you bake it in? Well, you might specialize in working with people who are starting over with their career, um, or
Sure
working with
do.
particular working with people who go through sudden changes or disruptions. That's Saturn Uranus. So when I say baking it in, honoring the ruler of your lot of fortune, it's a way to kind of draw more of the fortunes that work for you. Because it could also be those quote unquote negative fortune things that you don't want. So what you want to emphasize are the things you want rather than the things you don't want. So honoring that Saturn, ruling that lot of fortune, means kind of drawing in more ways in which you kind of teach ruler of that Jupiter, because you also have a nice Jupiter trine to your Saturn, and on top of Jupiter also ruling your Saturn and Uranus. So being a teacher, being a coach, these are ways in which you, we would say, mitigate your circumstances. Last but not least, your lot of spirit is ruled by Mercury in the 12th house, which actually has a trine, so it can see it by trine. And by virtue of seeing it and having a connection to that Mars as well, again, communication, especially things related to, like you started off talking about permaculture with some of your introductory lectures with astrology, talking about where we experience rootedness. I think there's some work for you related to either genealogy or understanding your roots. Um, these particular things, I think that that all testifies to your ability to communicate and communicate more so related to how we experience grounding.
Thank you so much. Can I just ask you two quick questions? You don't have to
Of
spend a
course you
lot of time.
can.
So, uh, my part of fortune is sextile to my ascendant and trine
Yes.
to my descendant, and Pluto has been there. So, other people might have that question too. So, I just thought I'd ask it. What are your thoughts?
So you're asking a very important question that I wish I had remembered just to say out loud. One of the things to pay attention to with the lots are also when transits happen over them, like Pluto going over it. So this has been a time pretty much because the last 2 years, Pluto has been close to that degree of 27 degrees Capricorn.
Yeah.
And when has Taylor Schuler exploded on the scene? Let me think. Oh, it's been about 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's like Pluto has been excavating your lot of fortune and calling you forward, especially since the ruler of your lot of fortune is conjoined to your midheaven.
Yeah.
So even if you didn't plan it, it's kind of manifesting. Now, the other thing to look out for is Jupiter. When Jupiter goes into Gemini in 2024 and
Yeah, it'll hit
conjoins,
that part of spirit, huh?
yeah. So that's going to be another time to kind of also think about what you can grow. Um, and I don't mean literally, but also in terms of
Maybe.
establishing roots. Um, yeah, it could be literal, but I didn't want you to go like, that motherfucker just told me to go farm again. That's not exactly what I meant. Um, but it can be related to how you step more into your vocation, because remember, the lot of fortune is material circumstances, external, but the inner, what kind you feel called for or to, or what draws you forward. We could say that the lot of fortune is how you deal with the incarnation of spirit into matter. We could say that the lot of spirit is where we're elevating spirit out of matter toward, bringing it out. So this might be where you step more into a specific role as a teacher, as a guide, um, and other work related to your entrepreneurial efforts. So that might be a very good time to work on that as well.
Thank you so much, Sam.
You're welcome, buddy. All right.
You're the best. I'll hang up
Thank
so
you.
I can get out of your space.
Oh, you're not okay. I understand, but I don't mind you being in my space. Um.
I'll stay, but just end it.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you for letting me do that. Let me see. So who was next? I can do Rose, but I don't want to miss anybody. All right. So Sharon, I'm gonna get you and Cassandra, and then that may be it. Oh, and Ray. I'm sorry. Okay. I'll try to. Okay, I won't be able to do everyone today. Uh, I'm sorry. I see the. Oh, I see all these like Tony. Hi. Urania. Okay. All right. Let me get Rose in at least. I have her chart handy, so don't get mad. Be like, I was first. God damn it! I don't know if I'm not taking in the order in which they were received, so y'all can get mad at me later. Um, but I'm gonna do Rose, and then I will try to get to some other folks. Um, so bear with me. So Rose, where are you, Rose? I put your chart in. Maybe I didn't. Okay, well I'm just gonna put it in a Rose. I'm trying to remember what's your last name. Maybe I put it in under your government name, which I always call you Rose, so I don't remember your government name. Isn't that awful? Um, I'll just put it in. Let's put it here. Because you're a 713, and you're like, how do you remember that? I know a lot of family members are 713, so it stuck when I did it. Rose, what is your, well, you don't probably want to put your government name. See, that's the Scorpio trying to protect you. Um, okay. Let me just put your data in again, because I know I have it, but I must have hid it for myself and put it in under your government name. So put it in again in the chat, because I don't think I put it under Rose. Okay. All right. So Rose 713, 1994, 1831 in Scottsdale, Arizona, not AX. I was like, where's AX? That would be interesting. All right, 6:31 p.m. Okay, Rose. All right, Cap rising, Sun in Cancer. So we also have another moon in Virgo. They are sextile. And Rose is a day birth. So what that tells us is that if we were to put the sun on the horizon, on the ascendant or the place of the ascendant, her lot of fortune would be sextile to her ascendant, which it's true. So her lot of fortune is at 9 Pisces and is conjoined to Saturn. It is also opposite to Venus, which is interesting, and her Venus is in Virgo. The lot of spirit, in terms of aspiration, ends up at 1 degree of Scorpio and is conjoined to Jupiter. So let's talk about that. So, and, and I don't know much about Rose. One thing that stands out when your lot of fortune is conjoined to Saturn, you're going to feel drawn towards Saturn things. Um, that can mean maturing quickly. It can also mean accepting a good amount of responsibility. And as I understand it, you know, um, at I guess now just 29, is that right? 29 years old, you have 3 children, at least, right? I think it's 3. So dealing with a sense of responsibility and, you know, holding things down, that's something that just comes to you. You may have, had others, excuse me, talk about you as an old soul. And this may be even very poignant for you, excuse me, as you're in your Saturn return. What's also powerful is Saturn is the ruler of your chart and with your lot of fortune. So Saturnian things, taking on this measure of responsibility is kind of what kind of congregates and aggregates for you. What that means practically and something to be aware of is that you you could also have responsibilities thrusted on you. Like, no, let her handle it. Let Rose handle it. And you kind of, go into it or go for it. And you have to be careful of assuming too much too soon. I'll talk about the ruler in a minute, Jupiter. Jupiter is also trine to your lot of fortune. And it's also connected to your lot of spirit. What's directly opposite to Venus, and this I do know, or directly opposite to your lot of fortune, is Venus. So things related to beauty, art, same thing I was talking about with Lily to some degree, but this is the lot of fortune, may have a gravitational pull for you. Like I was talking about the sink catcher analogy. Things kind of come and congregate for you. So things related to art, beauty, just naturally kind of aggregate around you. And your Venus is ruled by Virgo, which is again, sextile to your Mercury. So, you may, I know you do write. There's the poetry that we share and love of poetry. And this is a tangent. One thing I didn't mention with my Mercury life is I'm a published poet, anthologized. And Rose bought my anthology. I think you're the only person on this call who knows um, that I have a book of poet, well, not a book of poetry. I'm featured in a book of poetry with some heavy hitters. So I did that when I was about your age, 29. So your Mercury sextile to your Venus testifies to your ability related to writing, um, and these particular things. But I know something else about you. Um, so what that Venus also relates to, especially being controlled by the ruler Mercury, and Mercury also being trine to your lot of fortune. You're an aspiring nurse. So nursing, being able to care for others, um, and support them is going to be important. One thing I would say is that in many ways, um, you're probably also more of a mystical, spiritual person. I'm going to go on a limb here and say something. I do have a concern. I don't know where you are in your nursing career, but I would encourage you to think about yourself more as a healer. Nursing is important, but between your Sun Neptune opposition, Mercury being sextile to your Venus, and Venus being opposite to your lot of fortune, and Saturn there's a part of you that's conventional, but there's a part of you that's not. And you may be drawn more toward other kinds of healing and other modalities. Um, and it's going to be tying in spirit work related to um, conventional medicine. And I think it's going to be like, a wedding between the two. In terms of Jupiter being conjoined to your lot of spirit in the 11th house, using whole sign houses, I think that again is another testimony related to community, doing the work of conscience, um, and building and working in teams or working with people. I think also it rules some measure of healing to some degree because Mars is the ruler for your lot of spirits. So, and your Mars is in the sixth house. So, you also have to be careful of overwork, but that Mars in the sixth house ruling your lot of spirit. And also, you have to be protective of your lungs, um, and, overextending yourself, which is kind of more the mercurial aspect of it. You're like, why be protective of my lungs? Because Mars rules your lot of spirit, and Mars is in Gemini, the sign related to the lungs, and protecting your energy. So I don't know if you've had any lung problems in your past or things related to your arms, which is also something that's suggested by Gemini. But those are things to kind of keep in mind. Jupiter, as I said, rules your lot of fortune, conjoined to your lot of spirit. So there's an alignment between your intentions and your vocation and where you experience your fortunes. So this is where you also kind of find your power. All right, let me pause. Does this make sense to you, Rose? I don't know. Maybe Rose is thinking like, I don't know. Um, but let me know if it makes sense to you, Rose, in terms of what I've said. Oh, this is so fascinating. Thank you so much. Well, okay, good. Um, oh, well, thank you, Alexis. I this is going to be recorded, and I think you can listen to it again. I see of Haddad has entered the chat. Hello there. All right, so I owe some readings. So I've done this um for Rose. Oh, you're digesting what I'm saying. True to form, I get that. In terms of being a Cancer, with the moon in Virgo, I gotta process it. Sextile. Um, yeah, you've considered hospice work as well, death work, responsibility, the heaviness of things. That's also that's Saturn. Um, so I want to do one more reading, and I'm just going to pick someone. Y'all, like I said, y'all can get mad at me and be. I don't know if I'm in the right live. Okay, thank you. Okay, I made it. Good. All right. I don't know what happened. We're working still on some of the kinks, in terms of getting booted out. So I was going to do Urania. I just like the name Urania. If you could put your information back in, um, I will do your chart and beg forgiveness from everyone else because it's getting late. Okay, I see it, Urania. Thank you. And 2:59 a.m. Washington D.C. And I don't think I know Urania um at all. It's not the Urania. I know her Urania, but I don't think she was born in 1985. And I think she spells her name differently. So Urania, just to make sure I put the information in correctly. Um I have you as a Scorpio rising with Saturn conjoined to your ascendant. Your lot of fortune is in Sagittarius, and your lot of spirit is in Scorpio. Does this sound right? 27 degrees Scorpio is what I have rising. Okay, cool. So let's talk. Um, you're born on the first day of Aquarius. Um, so if you ever thought like I'm on the cusp, you're not on the cusp. Your sun is in Aquarius. Your moon is in Capricorn. Your Jupiter's in Capricorn. So let's talk about your lot of fortune. Your lot of fortune is in the second house, and it's ruled by Jupiter. Um, the planet that is closest to it isn't that close. It's about 9 degrees away from it, and that's Uranus. Um, so one of the things we can say with Uranus being in your second house, along with a lot of fortune, and your Jupiter being in Capricorn, there's going to be some instability, especially in this first part of your life. Like I know, like I'm 39, Sam. Yeah. Um, at 39, or you will be 39. You're 38 now, but this first part of your life, we could say the say first third or so, you experience a lot of financial instability and volatility. And this is partly with the Uranus, and this is partly with the Jupiter, um, ruling your lot of fortune. And what that may mean, especially with the moon being connected to your lot of your Jupiter, and your Jupiter even being somewhat connected to your sun, it's it's learning to pace yourself and really come to focus, especially as you're going toward, you know, um, Jupiter is going to be at its opposition roughly around the time you're 40. Um, and it'll be a time for you to kind of start dealing with where you might have extended yourself a little bit too much. Um, Now, that may sound strange because you also have Saturn rising. And, and Saturn is the ruler of your Jupiter. And just so everyone follows my thread, I'm looking at the lot of fortune in Sag. Then Sag is ruled by Jupiter. And then Jupiter is then headed up by or ruled by Saturn. And then we can go to Mars. Mars is the ruler of that. And what's interesting is that you feel a lot of responsibility and you may have a good measure of anxiety and you may have experienced this volatility. First, let me check in. Is this making sense to you? It's always important because you might be like, I was born rich. I've never known instability in my life. So, okay. Um, so in terms of this anxiety I was describing, you have this strong sense of responsibility, and what may contribute to some of the volatility you experience with your lot of fortune in the second house ruled by a Jupiter that's what we say in fall is that you have to be careful of, like I said, overdoing it, over worrying, and accepting too much. Like it's a good thing for you to learn how to say no, and focus and give more focus to things. I think you have communicative talent because your moon and Jupiter are in the same sign as your Mercury, the rulers, or I should say, the ruler of your lot of fortune. And so, through some mercurial efforts, um, also, again, choosing your words carefully, learning to choose your words carefully, um, these are ways by which you can build more or increase the better aspects of your fortunes. In terms of your lot of spirit is in your first house, and it's not too far from your Saturn and your South Node, and it's ruled by your Mars and Gemini. In fact, it's trine to your Mars and Mars and Pisces, sorry, your Mars and Pisces, and connected to your Venus in Pisces. What this says to me is that things related to what you create, either procreate or also create, or where you experience recreation, your particular hobbies, are what also contribute to some measure of your joy. And we're through your creative endeavors, how you can fulfill your scorpionic intention of self-determination. What a Scorpio rising wants most is to be able to determine their destiny more on their own terms, rather as than being dictated by others, or what others say. Because I always kind of joke with a Scorpio rising, because remember, your lot of spirit is in the first house, which in Scorpio. I always joke that if I had to choose between a lie detector and a Scorpio rising, I would always choose a Scorpio rising because they're looking beneath the surface, um, and they expect, unfortunately, at times, they expect people to lie. Um, they expect things not to be as they are. And so having this sense of the ability to determine things more on your own level, especially through your creative efforts, is something that's very important to you. And that might even give you more of the stability that you're looking for related to your finances. Um, do you do anything creative or, or things with your children? Yes, that's on point. My devotion is to my spiritual and creative purpose initially created my challenge with money because it's outside of the status norm, which is true. That's partly because, you know, Uranus is also cohabitating, as we say, with your lot of fortune. And then you also have the south node pretty close to your lot of spirit. Aha, you're a professional astrologer, full time, and dream analyst, and and that's great. I mean, also, it's interesting. Your moon is conjoined to Jupiter. Jupiter rules your ninth house. I'm sorry, your moon rules your ninth house. Jupiter is exalted in your ninth house, the ruler of your lot of fortune. What I would also say as part of your gifts, I think you actually can do creative work in astrology as well, meaning artwork or things that you make that's influenced or inspired by astrology. Because you also have this exalted Venus that's square to your Uranus, and connected to your Mars. So some measure of, demonstrating your love for astrology, your love for spiritual things can come through how you also create and give creative efforts. Um, and also in terms of your passions. I also, because this is not said enough, you have a Venus Mars um, conjunction. Uh, I think things related to sexuality and sex may also be part of your work. Like, are you saying I'm a sex worker? By the way, I have no stigma related to being anyone being a sex worker. So if anyone's a sex worker here, I don't care. And I'm not saying this about Urania, but what I would say, um, things related to sexuality, explorations, are also work that you have a gift for. And that's not about Scorpio or Scorpio rising. I know we all know the jokes about Scorpios and their draw towards sex. This is because your lot of spirit is ruled by that Mars in the fifth house, and conjoined to a Venus. So being able to help people be in touch with their pleasure might also be a focus related to your business, um, and even their hobbies, kind of reinstating joy. You know, I talk to people about their sense of purpose generally through astrology, but for you, I think it comes through in terms of really inspiring people to reconnect to their bodies and where they have that sense of joy and purpose. All right. Well, I'm glad you feel this. Um, Dream divine embodiment. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense even with, your lot of spirit being in your first house as well. And actually being connected to, like I said, your Venus and Mars, even by a trine. Um, yeah, oh, that's what that lot do. I get that thing over there too. All right, so good. Well, I'm starting to fade. So I am sorry that I didn't get to everyone. Cassandra, I know that you put in your information. Thank you for that. And Bree, I know you did. Um, I wish I could have gotten to everybody, but yeah, I start to get sleepy in the winter, close to 8:30. Like my body's like, it's dark. Let me go inside. Um, but thank you, Rose. Thank you, Urania. Lily Shen, love to you always. Um, Ray, oh, and I'm sorry I didn't get to you, Ray. Thank you for putting in your information. We'll get to you another time. This was fun for me. Maybe we'll even get to do a little earlier. But thank you for joining me. And as we go through these bumps and things kind of going out, we're getting it, down to a science. I believe in Rainy so much, so we're gonna get it down. All right, that's me for now. Yes, do book a session with me. Tell people about the app, please. Tell people this app. Okay, I'm plug. This app I think is really special. Um, it's special because it's bringing together some of the best known astrologers in the world, and it's combining astrology with tarot, with meditation, and it's a completely spiritually dedicated app, and it's live, which is different from just getting a whole bunch of words from somebody from an app and not being able to interact. We're building more of a sense of community so we can also kind of talk with each other, um, and talk about particular themes astrologers are posting on here. So, really tell people about this app. It's growing. I think it's going to, you know, be all over the world. So, spread the word. Thank you for tuning in, and deuces.